You arrive in a town that feels strangely familiar, even if you've never walked its streets. Stores with faded signs. People counting coins twice before buying bread. Conversations that always seem to end with the same phrase, "I'll see if I can pay you next month." You don't see tanks or soldiers, but you feel the aftermath of a different kind of war, a war of bills, debts, and late fees. It's the kind of war you might know well. In the middle of this town, you meet Beatriz. She wasn't born a villain. She was a wife, a mother, a woman who loved simple things, until war and scarcity took her husband and left her alone with children to feed and no money coming in. Her biggest enemy was no longer hunger or cold. It was something more silent, money, or, better said, the lack of it. At first, she does what many people do, borrows a little here, negotiates a little there, stretches every coin. But one day she notices something that changes everything. It's not just her drowning in debt. It's everyone. The baker. The neighbor. The seamstress. The mechanic. And where everyone is in debt, someone can profit. Guided by a local accountant, she discovers a tool you may have heard of, but maybe never really understood, the promissory note. A small piece of paper that says, "You owe me." She starts buying debts for cheap, giving people more time to pay. At first, she looks like a savior. But there is a thin line between help and control. Little by little, Beatriz becomes the person everyone owes. Some bless her name. Others whisper it with fear. She becomes an informal banker, born from pain, now powered by other people's desperation. Before we move forward, pause for a moment. In your life, have you ever felt that your debts put someone else in control of your choices? If this resonates, stay with this story. If you're already curious, tap the like so this kind of content reaches more people who need it. And if you want to follow each chapter of this journey, consider subscribing. You won't just watch a story, you'll walk through it step by step. The first time you see Beatriz, she doesn't look like a villain at all. She's standing in a grocery line, counting coins in the palm of her hand. Her fingers tremble slightly as she separates what will go to bread, and what will go to bus fare. Behind her eyes, there's that tired math you might know too well. If I pay this, I can't pay that. If I pay that, I don't eat. War has already taken her husband. Scarcity has taken her sleep. Now, money is trying to take what little dignity she has left. You watch as she steps out of line, leaving 2 items on the counter. She apologizes in a low voice, avoiding the cashier's eyes. On the sidewalk, she wipes a tear quickly, hoping no one sees. But you see. Days later, she's in a cramped office with a local accountant. Old files piled to the ceiling, smell of dust and ink, a fan that barely works. He explains promissory notes, interest, delays. Strange words. Complicated formulas. But Beatriz isn't intimidated. Desperation sharpens her focus. You listen as she asks the question most people never dare to ask. So, this paper here, it's worth less if the person can't pay on time, right? He nods. And if I buy this debt cheaper, and give them more time to pay, I can earn on the difference? Another nod. A longer one this time. The idea lands in her mind like a seed in dry ground. Soon, you see her walking from house to house. At first, she comes with kindness in her voice and empathy in her eyes. She offers time, relief, a way out of the immediate nightmare. But each signature adds another brick to an invisible wall. Neighbors begin to call her help, and also trap. Sighs of relief turn into sleepless nights. Gratitude turns into fear. And as Beatriz slowly transforms from struggling widow to informal banker, let me ask you. Have you ever signed something you didn't fully understand, just to make the pain stop for a while? If this is hitting close to home, stay with me. Like this video so the platform knows this topic matters, and tell me in the comments, have you ever felt cornered by a debt? Because in the next part, you'll walk beside someone who finally decides not just to fear the system, but to study it. And that might change how you see every contract from now on. You start to notice the change in town the same way you notice winter coming, Not in one day, but in the small things. It begins with whispers. A neighbor who used to avoid Beatriz now knocks quietly on her door at night. A shopkeeper who once gave credit with a smile suddenly says, "You'll have to talk to Dona Beatriz now, she handles that." A friend disappears from the cafe because it's embarrassing to pass in front of her and still owe. You watch as Beatriz's kitchen table turns into something else. The worn wood is now covered with neat stacks of paper, promissory notes, contracts, lists of names and values. A second-hand calculator sits beside a chipped mug of coffee that's gone cold hours ago. She doesn't look like a villain. She looks like a tired mother trying to do math at midnight. At first, her system feels like mercy. Instead of harsh deadlines and humiliating collections, she offers more time, smaller installments, kinder words. People leave her house relieved, promising, "I'll pay you, Beatriz, I swear. God bless you." But little by little, you start to see the other side. A woman who borrowed to buy medicine now pays double what she asked for. A man who was sure he'd be debt-free in 6 months discovers, buried in the fine print, that interest keeps stretching the road ahead. A family loses their old motorcycle, not because they didn't pay, but because they didn't fully understand what they signed. You notice that people don't talk about money anymore, they talk about Beatriz. "How much do you owe her?" replaces, "How are you doing?" "I just need to get rid of this debt with her," replaces, "I have a plan." In a town already wounded by war, another kind of battle begins, quieter, colder, fought on paper instead of streets. You may even recognize some of these scenes where you live today: the kind person who helps with loans, the small favor that grows into a chain, the contract no one fully reads. Have you ever signed something you didn't completely understand, just because you were desperate for a solution? If this is resonating with your own story or your community, consider liking this video so it reaches more people who need it. And if you want to follow Lucas's path as he starts to question all of this, learning how the game really works, stay with us and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. You're still in Lucas's living room when the realization hits you: this isn't just about numbers. It's about stories chained to contracts. Lucas spreads a few promissory notes on the table, the same kind Beatriz uses. You lean in, and for the first time, you really look at them. Not as a threat, but as a map. "See this line?" he says, circling a clause with his pen. "This is where most people lose without even knowing they played." You follow his hand. Small print. Complicated words. Grace periods that aren't really a grace. Fees that grow in the shadows. The paper is cold, but you can almost feel the heat of every anxious signature that landed there before yours. You think of Beatriz. In the beginning, she probably believed she was helping. An extra month here, a discount there, a friendly voice in the middle of chaos. But little by little, she stopped seeing people and started seeing positions: debtor, collateral, risk. You realize something uncomfortable: the system doesn't turn only bankers into predators. It can turn anyone who has information into a gatekeeper, and anyone who doesn't into prey. Lucas looks at you. The problem isn't just Beatriz. It's that she knows the rules, and they don't. He taps the documents again, but now you see more than ink. You see your own bills at home. Your own late fees. Your own hurried decisions made in the middle of fear. And a question begins to grow. What would change if you started reading your contracts like this? Slowly. Calmly. As if your future depended on it, because it does. You inhale. The room feels different now. Not lighter, not yet. But clearer. Tell me, have you ever signed something you didn't fully understand, just to solve it quickly? What did that cost you, in money, in sleep, in peace? If this story is resonating with you so far, stay with me. In the next part, you'll walk even deeper into Lucas's strategy, and you'll see how ordinary people, when they share information and stand together, can renegotiate more than debts. They can renegotiate power. And if you don't want to miss how this turns out, or the practical steps hidden inside this story, go ahead and hit subscribe so you're here for the next chapter. You watch, almost from the outside, as Lucas starts to change. He doesn't have more money. He doesn't get a miracle job. He doesn't inherit anything. What he gains is something far más poderoso, understanding. Late at night, with the house silent and only a weak light over the kitchen table, he spreads out copies of Beatriz's contracts. Pages and pages. Numbers, dates, interest rates. At first, it all looks like an indecipherable wall. Maybe your debt feels like that too, one big, shapeless fear. But Lucas does something that most people never do: he refuses to look away. He circles terms he doesn't understand. He writes them on a pad. He searches. He asks a retired lawyer from town. He talks to a union leader from a nearby school. Little by little, the fog lifts. The unbreakable contracts start to look human. Flawed. Negotiable. You begin to notice with him clauses that benefit only one side. Interest that grows faster than any paycheck. Penalties that punish late payment, but never late empathy. One afternoon, he walks into Beatriz's small office, not as a beggar, but as someone who knows the rules of the game he's been forced to play. He doesn't shout. He doesn't threaten. He starts with questions. Can you explain why this clause is here? Do you realize this rate is higher than what the law recommends? What would happen if several families decided to renegotiate together? You see something shift, not just in Beatriz, but in the room itself. Power moves. Not completely, not magically, but enough to create a crack. And through that crack, a possibility. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: many modern bankers thrive because you feel alone, guilty, and ignorant. When you start to understand, when you talk to others, when you compare notes, the fear loses volume. As you follow Lucas, ask yourself, what would happen if you put your debts on the table, literally, and faced them with the same courage? If this story is starting to echo something in your own life, save this video, hit like so it reaches more people in the same struggle, and tell me in the comments, what's the one part of your financial life you avoid looking at? Stay with Lucas's journey, because in the next chapter, you'll discover how he turns knowledge and community into real negotiation power, and how you can do the same. You sit with Lucas at a worn wooden table, the house quiet except for the ticking of an old clock. Between you, a stack of papers, Beatriz's contracts, notices of default, and promises made in a hurry that now feel like chains. Lucas runs his finger along a paragraph. Look, he says, this isn't just about numbers. It's about control. He shows you how a single clause turns a late payment into a snowball of interest, how one signature, made under pressure, with a crying child in the background, can cost a family their home. You realize these papers are not neutral, they are weapons dressed as solutions. You remember your own signatures. The times you didn't read the fine print because you were tired, embarrassed, or in a rush. The times you thought, I'll deal with this later, and later never came, only invoices and more pressure. Lucas doesn't tear the contracts. He studies them. He starts mapping everything out: who owes Beatriz, how much they owe, when payments are due, what happens if they stop paying. You help him. You list names, values, dates. The chaos on the streets slowly turns into a visible pattern on the table. And in that pattern, you see something surprising: Beatriz also depends on them. If too many families fall, her empire falls with them. You feel a shift inside you. Up to now, you've seen yourself only as a debtor, someone who begs, apologizes, and waits for mercy. But here, with Lucas, you begin to see another identity: you are a participant in the system, and that gives you leverage. You ask yourself, if I truly understood every paper I sign? If I knew my real numbers, not the ones in my head? If I joined with others in the same situation, would I still feel this powerless? If this is hitting closer to home than you expected, pause for a second and tap the like button. It helps this story reach more people who need it. Tell me in the comments, what's the hardest part of facing your own debts: the numbers, the fear, or the shame? Because in the next chapter, as Lucas gathers the town in a single room, you'll see how knowledge and union can turn a modern banker into someone who finally has to listen. And if you want to walk that path with them, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. You sit there, the notebook still open, Lucas's arrows and circles crisscrossing the page like a secret map. For a moment, you just breathe. Because somewhere between Beatriz's cold math and Lucas's stubborn hope, something clicks. You start to see your own story. Not just the bills on the table, not just the late fees and the "we regret to inform you" emails, but the silent contracts you've been signing for years. The deals you made with fear. The interest you've been paying, not only with money, but with sleep, peace, and choices you never dared to take. You realize, debt is not just numbers. It's a story someone escribe for you, the urgency that keeps them saying yes when every part of them wants to say wait. And you begin to ask yourself, what contracts am I still accepting, only because I don't know there's another way? Maybe your Beatriz isn't a widow in a small town. Maybe it's a bank, a finance app, a friendly lender, or a credit card that smiles in the ad and bleeds you in the fine print. Maybe it's even your own voice saying, that's just the way life is. But here's the quiet revolution Lucas shows you: the moment you understand the game, you stop being just a piece on the board. You don't need to become an expert overnight. You only need to take the first conscious step: look, question, organize, ask for help, share what you learn. That's how fear starts to lose interest on you. If this story has made you think, even a little, about your own agreements with money, take a second to reflect. What is one clause in your financial life you want to rewrite starting today? Tell me in the comments. Your answer might be the mirror someone else needs. And if you want to keep walking this path, with more stories, strategies, and tools to renegotiate not just your debts, but your destiny, stay with us. Hit subscribe, and let's keep rewriting these contracts together. You walk out of this story carrying something Lucas didn't have in the beginning: clarity. You've seen how it happens. Not with villains in dark alleys, but at kitchen tables. Not with guns, but with pens. A promise of relief, that becomes a quiet prison. Beatriz didn't wake up one day and decide to be a monster. She was a widow. Hungry kids. Empty pantry. No time to dream about financial education. Money became enemy and weapon at the same time. And in a town drowning in debt, she discovered the harsh truth: whoever understands the rules stops drowning, and starts charging for life jackets. But then there was you, walking beside Lucas. You watched as he stood at the edge of losing his mother's house. So tell me, which scene felt most like your life: Beatriz's desperation, Lucas's fear, or his decision to study the rules? If this story helped you see money and debt in a different light, save this video, leave a like to spread it to others who feel cornered, and tell your scene in the comments. And if you want more stories that don't just entertain, but arm you with tools to rewrite your financial script, stay close. Subscribe, and let's keep walking from fear to understanding to choice.